All right, so now that we've learned polynomial characteristics and end behavior, and we've investigated the zeros, let's try and put some of this stuff together. So we're going to call this one number 1, or maybe we should call it A because there's like a 1, 2, 3 up there, B and C. I'm going to do A in this video, and you're going to attempt to do B and C, and then you're going to check back and see if you did them correctly. So just want to look at A. Okay. So investigating the zeros, x-intercepts. For each polynomial function, write in standard form and factored form. 2, determine the zeros or the x-intercepts. 3, determine the y-intercept. Then we're going to come down here and put it all together. So first thing I need to do is write it in standard form. Y equals x squared plus 4x. That is in standard form because my highest exponent is 2. So you go always with the highest exponent as your degree, and that's what leads everything else. So it is in standard form, but it's not in factored form. So I need to figure out how to factor this. Well, I'm looking at it and I notice that x squared and 4x both have an x in common. So if I wanted to factor this, it would be a GCF, and I would factor out the GCF of x, and I'd be left with x plus 4. And you can test that. You can factor that back in and see that you would get x squared plus 4x. So that is the factored form. 2 says determine the zeros. So I'm going to set x equal to 0 because that's 0. And I'm going to use the trick of, hey, I just have an x here. There's no coefficient other than 1 on the x. So I can just say this is the opposite of what I see in the binomial. So x equals -4. Now it says determine the y-intercept. What is my y-intercept? Well, I only see variables here. I don't see a constant. And since I don't see a constant, my y-intercept is actually going to be 0. So now it says putting it all together. So let's write my zeros. I have one at 0, 0, and another at -4, 0. I have my y-intercept at 0, 0. The degree, we just talked about the degree. The degree is 2. The leading coefficient is the number in front of the variable with the highest exponent. And so in this case, that number is 1. Since I don't see a number there, that number is 1. Maximum number of U-turns I can have is always 1 less than the degree. I'll repeat that. The maximum number of U-turns you can have is always 1 less than the degree. So 2 minus 1 gives me 1. And now it's asking me about end behavior. Well, I have to see the degree and the leading coefficient in order to determine the end behavior. 2 is an even number, not an odd number, an even number. And 1 is a positive number, not a negative number. So you want to go back to that end behavior chart that we created, and you would see that if it's positive, it goes up on the right. If it's positive, it goes up on the right. And if it's even, they always go the same direction. So it's also up on the left. So given all of those things, I can actually graph this. So let me put the end behavior there. Given all of these, I can actually graph that. So this is my x-intercept at 0, 0, which is also my y-intercept is also at 0, 0. And then I need to plot another x-intercept at -4, 0. So 1, 2, 3. Here's -4. I know that my end behavior is up, up. So it's going to look something like this. So I took care of the zeros, the y-intercept, the degree and leading coefficient. That's how I determine the end behavior. So I'm not really doing anything with that on the graph itself. And then the max number of U-turns is 1. So I know that U-turn is going to be here because that's what makes sense. It's going to be down here because that's what makes sense for this. If my end behaviors are both up, up, it would not make sense, for instance, to have my U-turn go like that. No, that does not make sense. That would make it have 3 U-turns. So it's only 1 U-turn, and it is there. So as you can see, though, this is a sketch. We don't know the vertex. It could be all the way down here, or it could be really, really tiny up there. Okay, we don't know the vertex. This is why it's a sketch. But it's pretty good because I know that it's going through these points, and I know that as x gets smaller and smaller, y gets bigger and bigger, and as x gets bigger and bigger, y gets bigger and bigger. Okay, so this is how we put it all together. So please go ahead, rewatch the video or pause the video and attempt to do B and C from start to finish. Okay, C is a lot trickier in terms of the GCF factoring, but notice there is a GCF, and that GCF is x squared. Okay, I'm giving you the GCF. There's the hint right there. It's x squared. When you factor that out, you should be able to factor. This one is already in factored form, so watch the other video of how we would multiply it to get it into standard form. All right, so again, go ahead back through that video and attempt to do B and C.